Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Princeton Review's webinar, Mindful College Conversations to Navigate the Admissions Process. We're really excited to have you join us this evening. My name is Anna, and I am with the National Marketing Team here at the Princeton Review, and I'll be helping out with tonight's session. And before we officially begin, I do want to just share with you two housekeeping items to help you with tonight's session. First of all of your lines are muted for the entire webinar this evening. So if you do have a question or a comment or anything that you'd like to share with us this evening, please go ahead and use the question chat box that is located in your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll be monitoring the questions throughout, and we'll be doing a Q&A session towards the end. So even right now, if there are any questions that are on top of mind, please go ahead and just share those with us so that we can make sure to have time to answer as many questions as we can towards the end of the session. The second thing I wanted to share with you is that this session is going to be recorded. So if you didn't want to take any notes, or if you just wanted to sit back, relax, and just listen to what we have to share with you this evening, that is totally okay. We'll be sharing the webinar recording with everyone who has registered for this evening's presentation about 24 to 48 hours after the session is over, and that'll be coming to you via email. And so, again, my name is Anna. As I mentioned before, I am with the Princeton Review's National Marketing Team. And I'm really excited to be able to be joined here this evening with our in-house college admissions expert, Lisa McLaughlin. Lisa, how are you today?
Hi, Anna. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'll actually be the one speaking a lot. Anna is going to help with launching some of our poll questions and advancing the slides. So hopefully all of that will go well tonight. So welcome. Just so you know, if you're actually new to this College Admissions Hour, the first Tuesday of every month, we actually host college admissions webinars on lots of timely topics. And I have one brewing for next month that I'll be telling you about a little bit later. But I will say that this topic tonight is one that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. I have been in the field of college admissions and college admissions counseling for more than 20 years. And I was a columnist actually for the Los Angeles Times papers, and I wrote a column that was actually called The College Conversation. And I wrote about 400 different articles with some guiding questions for parents on how to have really fruitful, positive conversations about college admissions to get you and your students all the way through this process. So I'm really excited. I'm going to focus tonight on the ones that I think are the most important for the most mindful possible college conversations. So I can tell you that tonight is really geared for the parent, but if you are just a student and your parent is not there, and in a minute we're going to launch that poll, but if you are just a student, you will get a lot out of this. I think it'll help you with negotiating conversations with your parents. I do recommend you have something to write with, even if you want to, listen again to the recorded webinar. I think it might help you because I don't read slides, and so I try to just sort of go through this with you and to give you a lot of information. So Anna's actually in New York City. I'm out in Orange County, California, and that is where a lot of my background and experience is, working here with some California schools, school districts, and universities. If you want to actually launch that next poll, Anna, as I tell you a little bit about me, what I would love to know for you is who you are. So if you're the student, mark that, parent, mark that, and if both you and the student and the parent are in the same room, if you can actually mark that one, and that we will know. We are not going to share that, but it's just good for us to know who's there. And it looks like actually the majority are parents, which is fantastic. Okay. And then actually the next poll, if we can identify your grade levels, that would be great as well. So that way I know. So if you're a parent and you can actually, it says one or more, so you can go ahead and mark as many as you need to. But if you have a middle schooler and 11th grader, mark both. That way we'll sort of know where you're coming from. That would be great. And then I'll go ahead and start to tell you a little bit more about who I am. So like I said at the beginning, I have 20 years of experience in the field of college admissions counseling. I was a former application reader for the University of California. I was actually a co-director and the national director for a college readiness program. And so I read for the UC system. I still travel and did travel a lot across the nation to speak on a variety of college admissions trends and topics. I attend a lot of conferences, talk to directors of admission, and now I'm the director of college admissions outreach and bringing all of that information and wealth of knowledge to the Princeton Review while working with some amazing people who have just incredible experiences working with a variety of people. So I've been an expert college advisor to hundreds of families. I still am. I have a lot of knowledge to share with you today. I hope that you will ask questions. Please do. If there's anything on your mind, ask it. If I can't answer it, we'll try to find out the answer and let you know later. At the very end of the presentation, there'll be some time for Q&A via the screen. So if you do have to type it in because your mics are muted, like Anna said at the beginning. So what we're going to do today, if we can look at the agenda, is first I'm going to set the stage for success when it comes to having mindful conversations and what will help you to be able to get the most out of the conversations with your students. After that, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty details of what I feel are the 5 most valuable college conversations that you can have with your students throughout the process to really help them to get through this in a very stress-free way, and also to help you to get through this in a way that is going to be less stress, because we all know that it's not just the students that are going through this, it's also the parents as well. And then I absolutely want to share with you the admissions edge that you would gain if you choose to work with us. We do have amazing college admissions counselors and coaches that work with our students and our families. So I am going to talk a bit about those services at the very end. And then the very last piece will be your opportunity to ask lots of questions. So we're going to start off with another poll, and this is in order to figure out where it is you're coming from. So what I'd like to know, and I'd like for you to be as honest as possible, is what is the nature of college talk in your home? So what do I mean by that? Well, when we're thinking about the topics, are you talking more about a bad grade and what that's going to mean for college admission, or those test scores that you need to get your test scores up, or if you don't make this or that choice, it's going to hurt your chance of admission? I want you to just be thinking really honestly about the nature of those conversations, because I will tell you that, and as we're sort of getting through this poll, a little bit less than half have voted, so hopefully more will vote. Here we go. What I'll tell you is that what students have said to me and what students tell us is that more often than not, the conversations around college admissions and anything that has to do with college is often very negative. Not just what happens in the home or the car and transporting, if you're transporting a student to and from, but often it does come off as something that adds to the stress of the student and doesn't necessarily take away from the panic that a lot of students feel. So that's really where today's conversations are going to come in. And actually, if we want to share, you want to share those results, Anna?
Yeah, sure. We actually had 31% say more positive than negative. And 31% actually said more negative than positive, and then the rest were neutral.
Okay, so it's about a third. So about a third are positive conversations, a third are negative, and then some are neutral. So, for the most part, I think that we all have room for improvement. When we're thinking about what we want to talk to our students about and how to get through those conversations. So to start off, let's start with some ground rules. And this is really what I recommend for setting the stage for success when you're talking about college with your students. So this might seem like a no-brainer, but I'm just going to flat out say it. Okay, it is extremely important that for you as a parent, you get your own worries, you get your own anxieties and concerns about college admissions, college costs, anything that you're thinking about in check before you try to embrace any sort of conversation with your student about it. Okay, and that, this is just sort of a common sense approach to conversations in general when you're having conversations that can be more difficult or challenging, right? So I have this type of communication with parents often that often we're very reactive when we think about college admissions, right? And it's important to be more proactive. By doing that, your students are going to feel better about coming to you when they have a question or when they're confused. because obviously if they feel like when they're asking you a question or when they want to tell you something and it's going to cause you to stress out a little bit, they're not going to want to open up as much, okay? And so if there's a student sitting there, I would say you're probably going to give me a big thumbs up on that, because that is what I hear time and time again with the hundreds of students that I work with. More often than not, I will hear my dad or my mom is stressing me out because they keep nagging, or they keep bringing this up over and over again, or things of that nature. So it's really important to try to figure out, and we'll talk about this later, who your advisors, your trusted advisors are in this process as a parent, and then to get the right answers and come to your student in an expert way, so that way they feel like you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. You're not adding to their stress. I'll say that the other big piece of this for ground rules is that it may sound funny, but I highly recommend that you have college talk-free zones in your home, in your car, or certain times when it really is off the table for you to talk about things that have to do with college admissions. And what you have to remember is that students go through their day with teachers, with tutors, with their own peer group, and they are often hearing about college all the time, okay? And that pressure and stress can be overwhelming. And so what's important is to really think about, what do you need to talk about with your student when, and to pick those times of the day, or hopefully it's not every day, but pick those weeks and the times in the month when you can really sit down and have a positive, fruitful conversation that's going to be productive about whatever it is you need to address when it comes to college admissions. And we're going to talk in a minute about these conversations, but by being proactive and deciding, maybe when I used to meet with clients one-on-one, I often wouldn't meet with students at the very end of their school day, because that was their downtime when they needed to just sort of relax, grab a snack, do their thing. I've found that a lot of parents, that's sort of the time when they try to engage in these important conversations with students, which is not usually a good idea. So think about, your Sunday afternoon, or your time when there's more calm in your house, hopefully anyway, because there's not a lot of stress about going to and from. And by doing that, I think you will absolutely set the stage for better conversations. The first college conversation that I feel that we all really need to address is this. And I think that we take so much time now thinking about the future, okay? And if you're on Facebook and Instagram, and you're a parent in their mid-40s, late 40s, or older, you've heard a lot about this movement to be more mindful, right? And to think more about the present. And what we do a lot right now with our kids is that we're forcing them to think so much about their future when they're so young, that it's a very stressful conversation that actually takes away from their development. And there's a lot of psychological research that's related to that. And so what I ask you is for you to ask yourself this guiding question of, okay, so what do you think is the purpose of your child's own high school experience? So what do you want them to get out of high school before you think about the future of where are they going to go to college? Let's think about where they are now. So you might be a parent that believes that high school is a time to take risks, to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes, right? It's that time from 14 to 18 years old where there's a lot of social emotional growth. There's obviously a lot of intellectual learning and curiosity, hopefully, that'll take place, and the student will start to maybe think about what they love as far as subjects are concerned. Maybe it's all of the above. But what I hear time and time again when I ask this question to parents in very large groups, I used to ask this and when I would have presentations nationally, and oftentimes the response would be, the purpose of going to high school is to do well so you can get into a good college. And what I'll say to that is, that's not right or wrong. That could be one of the purposes of your high school experience. But if it ends up being what guides all of the decisions that are being made in high school, I'll say that there is a big miss there, okay? And that's something that I want to address in this first conversation. So what I say is, for like you and your partner, you and your significant other, whoever is there as family raising your student as you're going through this experience, I think it's important to think about what it is you want them to get out of high school. Because if it's more social emotional growth, you want them to take risks, you want them to grow and learn, and you also want them to get into what you consider a, quote, good college, then the way that some conversations, the way that decisions are going to take place throughout high school will be guided by that premise. So for example, let's say that you have a student who's been swimming on teams and whatever since they were 9 years old, 8 years old. Okay, so they started in the Little Guppies, they went through, they're on a competitive swim team, a club team, they go to high school, they're swimming for their team. Let's say they get to right before their junior year, and they come to you and they say, I'm done with swimming. I don't want to do swimming anymore. I hate it. I'm not into it. I can't do this anymore. If you're the parent that believes that everything that they do in high school has to be connected to that end game, which is college admission, your initial reaction might be, there's no way you're dropping swimming because it doesn't look good to colleges, okay? And we're going to talk about that in a minute, where one decision like that would never make or break a college's decision for a student, okay? But if you're the type of parent that that's your initial reaction, then you miss out on a great conversation of, well, if that's not what you want to do anymore, what can you do in its place? What can you do to still be physically healthy? What can you do to still show that you're a committed person and that you're not a quitter? There's other things that you can do that actually colleges would really love to hear about, okay? So there is no way that quitting a sport or one low grade, and actually if you want to go to the next screen on this, Anna. Okay, something to keep in mind is that wrong turns in high school they don't always spell disaster when it comes to your student's chance of admission. Okay, and so for you as a parent, when you're thinking about this conversation about what you want your student to get out of this experience, one dropped class, like let's say they decide they're in this honors English class freshman and sophomore year and they don't take it junior year, that is not going to completely spell disaster because it's one decision that was made, or one D on a report card, or one season that your student chooses to take off of a sport, or one summer that they just need to relax, okay? All of those things are perfectly fine as long as there's that lesson learned, that page turned, and when it comes time to applying for college, your student has a way to talk about that decision and what they learned from it. Because mark my words, when your student gets to be a senior, one of the most common questions they're now asked is a mistake that they learned from, something that they gained from a decision that was challenging for them that they made on their own. And so these are the types of high school experiences, this growth, this social emotional learning that actually makes for amazing college essays and great candidates for college admission. So thinking about that conversation, what is the purpose of high school? Having that with whoever is co-parenting or helping you with this process, or having it on your own, and then embracing that conversation with your student to ask them the type of experience that they want. When I have students that come into my office, when we have students at the Princeton Review that show us their initial college list, and it is a list that includes highly, highly selective, uber selective schools, it's important that we have honest conversations with them to say, by choosing these types of schools, by choosing the Yales, the Dukes, the Stanfords, the balance between social, personal, and academic is going to be off kilter a bit, where it's going to have to lean more towards the academics in high school, which means that your high school experience is going to look different than someone who maybe isn't interested in those schools. Because if you're a student that is looking at the Stanfords, okay, and those types of colleges, and that's where you want to end up, that means you could have 3+ hours of homework a night. It means when your friends are going to Friday night football games, you can't go because you have other work to do. So there's sacrifices and things that need to be made. Embrace that conversation and be able to know that wherever student ends up, they're going to be happy and they're going to thrive. But have the conversation ahead of time and be proactive, so you as a parent aren't stressing out when you feel like doors are constantly closing because they wanted a more balanced high school experience. Okay, the next conversation, if you have questions about that, if something has come up for you where you're wondering if a student should drop a class or whatever, you feel free to put that in the questions if you'd like. I'm happy to address that as we go through. So the next poll that we have, we may have gone backwards there. I'm not sure if we did or not. The focus, here we go. Okay, so Something I want you to also think about as we go through is, what is the focus or subject of your college talk? Okay, so when you're thinking about the conversations that you have, do you focus on grades, academics, test scores? You know, again, a low grade or a drop class, or what are you taking next year? Is that what you're sort of talking about in your home? Do you talk about the college search process? Hey, what colleges do you want to go to, or where would you like to visit next spring? Do you talk about admissibility? What are the chances of acceptance to get into this school? I'm never going to get in, or hey, I hope I have the opportunity to go there, mom and dad, because that's where you went. What about affordability? Do you talk about that in your home, or extracurricular concerns? So, and I'm gonna read these off if you want to close that. So we're looking at this. So right now, so 83% are actually talking, when the focus of talk is on the college search process, and then next up is admissibility, chances of acceptance, so that makes sense. Just beneath that are grades and test scores, then affordability, then extracurricular concerns. So that's actually interesting, and that's good to know. The next question, if we actually want to do that one, this is very important before we talk about the next topic, is I'd like to know if you've discussed the financial realm of college admission with your student. So I'm interested to know if you've had conversations with your student about affordability, about what it is your family can and can't afford, how much you're willing to pay or not pay, what your expectations are, things like that. While you're doing that, this is an important, I like that a lot of you are, that's great. Okay, so if you want to actually go to the next slide, and then we'll close this poll. So 64% of you actually said yes, 29% said sort of, and 7% said no, okay? First of all, I love that more than half of you have, okay? But what I will say is that this conversation should be one of your most important conversations that you have as you're going through this process, okay? To ask yourself, where will your child thrive in college? What is a place that's going to fit them well? And then to have that conversation with your student. What I'll say is that this conversation is the one that causes the most contentious, heated debates and arguments between a parent and child as you're going through the process. That is what I've seen, okay? Because you know your babies. You know where they're gonna thrive. You feel like you have it down, right? You've seen them, you've seen how they are in school, you've seen how they are with friends. You know where they're gonna do well, but they might have a completely different image in their mind, and they often do. So what I'll say is that this is something that in our college admission services, we pride ourselves on building a thoughtful, well-researched college list that's going to ensure that your student fits the schools on their list personally, socially, academically, and financially. And that last piece I'm going to talk about in a minute. What I can say is that if you go to review.com, you can actually go under admissions and you can do a fantastic college search. We've got a great search engine on our site. We're actually going to be updating that. There's a new app that we have coming out, a college advisor app. It's fantastic. I hope that you'll make sure you're on our list so that way you know when that's coming out. But in the student's sophomore and junior year, it is extremely important to spend a really good amount of time on developing a thoughtful list. And that means that you're not just focusing on what the student's profile is. You're not just looking at, these are my students' grades and test scores, and this is where they can get in. That's part of the conversation, and we're going to talk about that in the, I believe it's the next conversation, not yet. But what's extremely important is that you're also thinking about those personal, social, and financial factors that have to go into the student's college list, okay? So the personal piece of, does your student thrive in an environment where they have really large classes? Do they thrive better in an environment where there's smaller classes? Will they do better having to live on campus for 3 of their 4 years? It's required at some colleges. Or will they do better living in an off-campus apartment? Those types of nitty-gritty questions and getting to really the details of where the student is going to thrive, that is your job as a parent in the sophomore and junior year, is to help them to create this picture of what they want in a college. And so when you think about where your child will thrive, helping your student to come up with where they're going to match, where they're really going to fit, not just academically, but everything else, it's the best thing you can do. Because what you don't want is you don't want to randomly come up with a list of colleges based on what your friends, your teachers, even a counselor has told you. You want it to be a wide combination of firsthand experiences on a college campus, the student's own thoughtful research, your guidance, and your financial responsibility, need, affordability. All of that should combine and mold together well to come up with a really solid list. What I'll tell you is the parents in this process that are open to schools that you may not have heard of before, schools that are maybe lesser known but still very prestigious, okay? Again, California-based counselor, I have talked about colleges in North and South Carolina before to clients, and people look at me like I'm crazy because they've never heard of those schools before. And now they've graduated from those schools. They have incredible jobs. They had amazing experiences on those campuses. They thrived in those environments because they were excellent fits. A lot of them got amazing merit aid at some of these schools. So the more open you are as a parent to having colleges on the list that maybe you don't know a lot about at the beginning, but you'll learn to love them as you go through it, the more open you are, the more the student is going to be open in the process, okay? The more they're going to realize that there are so many different options for them, and that is the best position for a student to be in as they go through this process, feeling hopeful, understanding that there's more than the 25 or so schools that they have in their mind that they can go to, okay? So that's something that, you know, we want to make sure that you really understand. What I'll say as a parent, and I see this far too often, is that you don't have the financial conversation until after the students have been admitted to colleges and they have their list. I will say that I feel that that is a big miss as a parent and as a family. That I do feel that it's very important at the beginning of this search process to be open about how much you can pay. Are you going to be taking out loans? Is your student going to be taking out loans? Are you looking at schools that are going to be more generous with merit aid? Have that conversation. Do you expect your child to work when they're in college? Up to how many hours? Have that conversation early so they're not blindsided later. Let's say they've applied to 10 schools. They get into 6 or 7, and 6 of the 7 you cannot afford as a family. Okay, I've seen that happen a lot. So it's important to have that conversation at the beginning. If you are completely anti your student going to a really large school because you feel like they're going to get lost in the shuffle or party the whole time, you need to have that conversation early and often and be able to negotiate and compromise and make sure that there's a lot of schools on that list that are going to make both of you happy. And that's extremely important as you go through the process. I'll say that on average, our students at the Princeton Review apply to 7 to 9 schools. That's on average. And I would say initially the list can be 15 to 20 colleges. And what we do is we work really hard to teach the student what to look for on college visits, what to look for on paper when they're doing their actual research assignments on the web, and how to really identify those colleges where they're going to thrive and it's going to be a great fit for them. We work with students that are top academically, that are applying to the Ivy League and highly selective schools. We work with students that have a 2.5, sometimes even lower, that are looking for schools that are going to embrace them as like a late bloomer, right? Then we work with everyone in between. So it is really about focusing in the 10th and 11th grade on building a very well-researched list. And by having that conversation and not brushing it under the table or not just having a counselor hand your student a list, you want to be really proactive in the process and get started early on that. Okay, the next question, or next college conversation. Okay, so this one, guiding question. Who is responsible for which aspects of the college admissions process? Okay, this is an important college conversation for you to have. My advice is to ask your student, depending on where you are in the process, what is the best way for me to help you? Okay, I have worked with parents that have done complete spreadsheets for their students, organized everything in file folders, created different notebooks, put different apps and things on their computer to get organized, And the result is complete rolled eyes among that team. I have worked with parents who have asked, what's the best way for me to help you? Slowly allowed the team to take the reins on certain pieces and gave that student more and more responsibility and watch that student thrive. And of course, I've worked with everyone in between. But what I recommend that you do is that, first of all, you remember that your child is the one going to college, okay? So strategizing, helping them to divide and conquer, doing all of that is absolutely your role. And what you want to think about here is this. This is probably going to be the first humongous project that your student is going to do that has no final grade, okay? That is not going to have unless you work with an admissions counselor or a private company like us, you're not going to have anyone that's helping you to nag them, handhold them, make sure they're doing their assignments on time, make sure they're not doing things last minute. Students do not have a lot of experience with that. They have a little bit if they've been in AP classes and they have to break down big projects, but that's still usually over a semester or even over a quarter, right? In an AP class, they're assigned something, and usually the teacher is going to have deadlines along the way, tests and quizzes along the way to make sure they're doing and understanding the material. The college admissions project, which is this usually 2 to 3 year process, there's nothing like that. And so what my recommendation is that you sit there and you say, okay, so what is it that I can handle? So these are my recommendations, okay? First of all, be ethical in this process, okay? You as the parent should absolutely not be doing the students' college applications, okay? That is cross the line for you to do that. That is not your role. Your role is maybe to help to gather data and information so that way they can easily put it into their application. Or better yet, your role is to do things like registering them for the proper tests and test prep, helping them to get organized so they can write out their activities and honors resumes, ensuring that they have the proper help that they need, whether it's after school tutoring or things like that, and slowly releasing the reins or handing over the reins to them so they can learn that this is their process and that they're in charge of the next steps and their future. And I will say it's very empowering for the student to feel that. And I know it's hard sometimes as a parent because it's such a big deal. College admissions is so huge, but it's important to do that very slowly. And you know, we work with students here at the Princeton Review as early as 10th grade. If you work with us hourly, it can be earlier than that. But it's important to just start to chunk out what your student can handle. And, you know, what I recommend is you have maybe a couple milestones a semester or quarter that you want your student to work on, and that's something that they're working on throughout. So for example, if you have a high school junior right now, and you're looking at where you're at in the process, hopefully they've all registered for their PSAT through the school, because I believe it's like next week, okay? If it didn't already take place this week, sorry. So hopefully they've, you know, registered for that test. Hopefully they have a test prep plan in place. They've started to put together some of their extracurricular activities on paper, so that way they can sort of fill in holes. Hopefully they're getting to know their high school counselor a little bit, apart from just, hey, I need to drop this class because this teacher doesn't like me. Hopefully they're starting to do those things. But if you can outline or work with someone like us where we're going to help you to understand what the milestones are, then that way the student will feel more empowered to do it on their own, and you'll feel better because they are getting things done. And so it's highly recommended that you do that. And again, be proactive, not reactive. So I think it's difficult because parents get upset when their students haven't done something, because you might be at a local coffee shop and you hear some parents talking about their kids are taking the SAT in January, and you start to freak out because they haven't started prep, and so you get worried and you say to your student, why haven't you registered or what? And that's where you can absolutely take the reins and you can sit down and have the conversation of, hey, when would you like to take these tests? What kind of prep do you want to take? How can we get started? That's going to be a better conversation. Remember, your child is the one going to college. It's your job to help them to get out the door in a really great way. okay, in a powerful way. Let's go to the next one. For the next question, and this is really important, and we find this a lot in our practice, and I think it's important to do this. So it's really, really critical that you get your hands on your student's high school transcript and their profile as soon as possible, especially in the junior year, okay? But you need to sit there and have an honest assessment, an honest analysis of your student's profile and their admissibility, okay? There are tons of tools online, including on our own site, where you can look at what the average test scores and the average GPA is for a student to get into a school. But it's important that you know this, and I'm putting this out there because this is not something that is well known and not heavily advertised. You have to recalculate your student's GPA to the standards used by most colleges. And I'm telling you this because we've had this, I had this personally when I was an independent counselor before Princeton Review, that I had students come into my office, show me their transcript where they had a lot of honors classes, not AP classes, not IB or International Baccalaureate classes. They had a lot of honors classes that the high school gave weight to. So in other words, if normally you get a B and it's a 3.0 that goes into your GPA, it would be a 4.0 if it was weighted. They give an extra bump in the GPA. I had students come in that thought that they had almost a 4.0 GPA because of all these honors classes. But what you need to know is that the majority of colleges in the United States do not add extra weight to just honors classes, okay? I'm going to say that again. The majority of colleges, they're going to recalculate your GPA, removing regular honors points, okay? Now, what does that mean? And let me kind of help you with this. And why would a college do that? Well, AP and IB curriculum is national or international curriculum. It is nationally or internationally accredited. It has a stamp of approval from either the College Board or the International Baccalaureate Association or group, okay? An honors class is a class that was created by your own school district, possibly even your own just school department, and there's little oversight in what honors curriculum is. And so what a lot of colleges do is they say, okay, we like that you took the honors class because it prepared you for the AP class, but even though your high school gives weight to it, we're going to take that weight out when we're recalculating the GPA, okay? So it's really important that you have an honest, true, authentic GPA as you're going through the process. So by the time you get to be a second semester senior and you're really getting into developing that college list, which actually should be starting first semester junior year, okay, there's urgency to start doing that now so you can start to have some goal scores in mind for testing. But if you start to think about your college list and you think that you have a 3.8 GPA, when in actuality, when it's recalculated, it's like a 3.5, that could affect your school list. So it's really important as the parent that you recalculate the GPA, you take a really hard look at your student's testing profile, okay? If your student wants a 200-point increase on, from their baseline practice test score to the real thing, but they're not even prepping, or they're not doing private tutoring, or they're not doing something that's really going to help to give them that edge, then we need to have an honest assessment of, well, what's going to happen. I've worked with lots of students like that. They claim they want a 150, 200-point increase, but they don't do their test prep homework, right? So you as the parent have to have this honest conversation with your student in order to get an accurate profile, right? And then the other piece is you need to really assess the rigor of the student's course load, what they can handle, okay? Because if you have a student that's looking at really highly selective schools, and at their high school, there's 20-something AP classes, but your student, by the time they graduate, is only going to take 3, but they're looking at Harvard, Stanford, the really, really highly selective schools, their chance of getting into those schools is not very strong if they're not going to take advantage of that rigorous course load. So you as the parent, you need an honest understanding of what the academic profile looks like of a strong candidate. And then you need to look at your own student's profile and just have a reality check. Because you don't want to get to the point in your senior year where you're applying to colleges where your student has really a low chance of getting in because you didn't plan ahead, or you didn't have an honest assessment of where they're at when it comes to their academic profile. So this is something I say, and I'll also say this also happens a lot with recruited athletes as well. So, you know, if you have a student that they play baseball and they're really good at school, they may be on a club team, they're looking at playing baseball in college and getting recruited, it's important to have an outsider, you know, look at your student's athletic ability, right? So that way it's not just that he's this fantastic student in your own league, but also that he's got real national potential to be recruited at a school. So just being honest about that and then having those conversations early, being proactive instead of reactive, is going to help you a lot as you go through this process. Number 5. So the next piece would be this question of, who are your trusted advisors in this process? And there are so many cooks in the kitchen. So I want to launch this poll. I want you to think about this. So who is your most trusted? Okay, I want you to pick one. Who do you think is the most trusted advisor here? Is it yourself? I put parents, but if you're only a student there, you could put you. Is it your friends? A high school counselor? Maybe it's another counselor, an independent counselor, a college admissions counselor, or maybe is it just that, you know, online advice, resources, the Princeton Review site, whatever it is you use. I'm curious to say who you trust the most to give the best college admissions advice. I probably should have had a little other category on there, but we'll wait a little bit because I really want to get this poll going. But I think what's really crucial here is to think about all of the possible people that you encounter starting really young up until graduation that are trying to give you advice about the college admissions process. Okay, and so we'll actually see, we have like 70% that voted, but that's okay. Let's close this poll. So we have that 43% of you, your most trusted advisor is yourself, okay? And then apart from that, it's online, 30% almost, and 21% to a high school counselor, okay? So when you think about it this way, it's really important to kind of think about who should be in your corner as you're going through this process and who do you really want to listen to, okay? Be very wary of misinformation and decide who it is. Hopefully, you know, you've got well-researched evidence of why this is a good person, but you need to really think about where the information is coming from, who is giving you advice, and to come to terms with that and align with your student on who you're going to take advice from, okay? There is a reason why the independent counseling business is booming. There is a reason why here at the Princeton Review, we just revamped and, you know, are making known our products for college admissions counseling, because there is a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of people don't know who it is that they can trust. So you have to sit there and think about who's in your corner or who is just sitting there to gossip and to add, you know, fuel to the fire and to sit there and add to the hysteria that is college admissions. So it's important that you know who to ask for to get the right answers, okay? So what I always say is, of course, you start with your high school counselor, okay? Sometimes the caseloads are really large. You know, there's a lot of different things that are going on in a high school counseling office, but to identify if that's going to be a very trusted source of information and asking questions like, when was the last time that they went for professional development? What do they do to really understand the current admissions trends, okay? And knowing that to start should help you to decide if that's going to be enough, or if you need really a third party or other people to go to get the correct advice, to get the best possible advice in order to put your student in the best position they can for selective college admission, okay? What I always tell people is that when you say as a parent that you're your most trusted advisor, okay, you have to remember that your experience is going to be somewhat limited. Sometimes it's based on your own college admissions experience, which could have been a long time ago, right? But think about how much more powerful it would be if you have someone else in your corner where you know that you're not just getting answers, but that you're getting the right answers. So you want to identify that. And for the other noise, the noise that you hear at a PTA or booster meeting, that you hear at your local coffee shop, at a weekend get together with friends, that is just noise. And that for you as the parent, you want to, you know, take that information and then go to your trusted advisor to identify what's true, what's myth, what's fact. And that way you're going through the process armed with the proper, correct, valid information. Extremely important. If we think about what happens in this process, a lot of this is people sort of come up with information because they go along with the pack, right? Where, I mean, I heard something the other day where someone told me every junior is supposed to take the October SAT test. Okay, and I said, no, not every junior is going to be in a good position to take the test in October, right? Because maybe they're not in the appropriate math class yet, or maybe their summer schedule for prep and their prep up until the test is awful and they have no time. So you just have to be careful of what you hear and then make sure you're getting to the right advisor and the right source as soon as you possibly can. That's an important conversation to have and to address that ahead of time. I tell people this as well. When I started off a long time ago, okay, prior to my really getting expertise in college admissions, I was an English teacher. And I started off at a middle school and then at a high school, and I taught senior English, and it was a long time ago. And when I taught senior English, I taught the personal statement, and I gave these fabulous lessons on how to write a fantastic personal statement, what I thought at the time was a compelling, strong personal statement. And I will tell you, just as I have told my students, who some of them I'm still, in contact with, it was a long time ago, is that if I acted with the information that I know now, I would have taught it very differently. Because as an English teacher, I was not trained in how to teach the personal statement. I was not at all. And access to the web and information was not as great as it is right now. And so I was teaching the personal statement in a very similar way that I taught students how to write their papers in English class. And it's a very different type of writing. I can say very honestly that for me, my advice was as good as it could possibly be at the time, but that if I had a trusted advisor, someone that, if I was a student and I was someone who I knew really well how to teach the college essay, I knew what those essays needed to look like, I had a college admissions officer that, helped with that, that would be the trusted advisor for the process. So make sure that the people you're getting advice from know what they're talking about, and that you can ask specific questions to identify that before it is you're working with them or getting advice for them or following, down this rabbit hole that's not going to get you anywhere. So with that, let's go to kind of the next one. And now's the time when I'm going to talk a little bit about our services. At the very end, we're going to answer questions. Right now, we don't have a lot coming through. I'm a college admissions counselor. I've been one for more than 20 years. If you came today with any questions that you have about anything related to college, please type it in now, because we will take the time to answer some of those questions in a minute while I'm going through this. So anything you want, if you have questions about testing, questions about applications, about something that's come up with your student, please ask away, and we'll go ahead and answer those in a minute. So here at the Princeton Review, we have comprehensive college admissions services. You actually are paired with a college admissions counselor and a college admissions coach. Our counselors are former admissions officers from highly selective schools. So they have experience working on that side of the table. They know what it takes to get accepted, they know what it takes to get in, and they know the types of students that get left out. So those are our counselors, and they're the guide through the process. They help with informing strategy. They'll help with deciding what classes you should take, when you should take certain tests, the types of colleges that you can get into, how to go through the research process, and they help with everything when it comes to strategizing, brainstorming, drafting, crafting, helping you with the entire application process from start to finish. Our coaches are there as well, and they work together as a team to help to guide the student and the family all the way through the process. So the coach is also a college admissions expert, but they're also really adept at project management. So they're the ones that are going to make sure that your student reaches milestones, they hit those deadlines ahead of time. Okay, they're not just waiting till the last minute. They are available during all times, 24/7 almost, it seems like, not exactly, but it seems like during the admissions and application process. They're there to help with questions on essays, but we go through the whole process. Right now, today actually, we launched a brand new package. It's called our Ultimate Admissions Package. It takes the student all the way through the junior and the senior years, going from the research process for the college list, everything that has to do with academic and extracurricular advising. It's going to help with financial aid advising, through application, preparation, guidance, and support for up to 5 applications. It helps all the way through the process. So if you want more information about that, there is a phone number, 1-800-866-0445, that you can go to get information. You can also, actually, if we can launch this next poll, if you're interested in a free college admissions consultation with one of our enrollment specialists, a parent is required for that meeting. But if you're interested, please let us know, because you'll be reached out by one of our admissions specialists in the next couple of days to get you scheduled for that. Right now, we have a promotion going on where for anyone that enrolls in the Ultimate Admissions Package, you actually get access to unlimited application reviews, unlimited help on your applications, which is a $500 value, for free. So by enrolling in our Ultimate Admissions Package, you don't just get 5 applications, you actually get all of the ones that you need to complete. So if you're applying to 12 schools, you will absolutely have all of that included in the service. If that's something you're interested in, you can let us know. If you'd like a consultation, please let us know that as well. And then I think what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up to questions. We only have a couple. And I'll have Anna, actually, I wonder if I can see what these are. Oh, I can. Actually, I can see it on my own. Yay. Okay, so one of our questions is about the discussion of schools that meet 100% need. Okay, so if you're looking for that list, that's something that you can actually find on our site. We actually have a fantastic book. It's called Paying for Colleges Without Going Broke. I highly recommend, if you go on our Princeton Review website, you can see that book. But there are colleges that will meet 100% of need for the student. The catch on that is how they meet the need, right? Because some schools are going to meet the need with more loans. Some students are going to meet them 100% with grants and scholarships. So you can definitely find that list if you look on our Princeton Review site. We'll have that on there. And that's something you can also Google it and find that information. But there are schools that do that. They usually, though, are very highly selective schools for the most part, and the need is obviously based on the FAFSA, which the FAFSA, by the way, opened for seniors for October 1st for financial aid. So if you're a senior and you haven't done that yet, it's important to hop online and to get started on your FAFSA. So hopefully that answered your question. This next question, okay, how to motivate. Okay, so this question was, this student, their son is a senior. They have very little interest right now in college. He's got decent grades, great test scores, she said, or I just want him to go to college and get any degree. What are your thoughts? So what I would say is your goal is to absolutely work to motivate your students. So my first question to you would be whether or not you visited any colleges, because I think that's a great motivator. Sometimes you can talk to your blue in the face to your student about the college search process and they're just completely disinterested. But if you actually go to a few college campuses and do some tours, have them look at, do the tours of the campuses, listen to the admissions rep talk about what it takes to get in, that can be incredibly motivating. Our best books, I think it's the best 382 colleges right now. That's a great way to, get students to start to think about colleges. Sometimes you may have a senior that's a late bloomer, and maybe they need to take some time to kind of decide what it is they want to do. I don't think it's too late, honestly, for a senior to get motivated. I think for some students right now is the time when they really start to kick it in high gear. There are lots of colleges that accept applications through January, February, even later. And so, now's the time to decide what you can do to motivate. We do a really great job at that. I will say our college admissions coaches are fantastic at helping to motivate students. We'll help to make sure that the list is designed in a way that it's going to make sure the student really embraces the options that they have and get to know the options that they have. So that might be a way to get them motivated to start. This next question, it says the ultimate package says 500 value. So, the value actually is the add-on. So you can go to our website. Our website has all of the information and pricing for our ultimate, and also we have something called the targeted package. It's by class year. So if you just go to the website and pull that up, you can get the information. There, we have an unlimited application add-on that would be to our regular packages. That's an additional $500, but for now, that's actually automatically added on if you enroll in your limited package. So that's what I meant by that. And any more information on that, you can absolutely get if you call us, or if you say that you wanted a consultation, we'll make sure that we get that information. And Karen, I'm so excited. It says visits are starting this weekend. I hope you absolutely enjoy your college admissions visit. It's such a fantastic way for you to get excited about colleges and to help your student to figure out what it is they want. Surya asked, does 9th and 10th grade marks matter? Is there a weight for SAT scores, IB scores, and 9th and 10th scores? Okay, so if you're talking just all around about grades, it is an absolute myth that 9th grade grades don't matter. And that's something I'm constantly combating with families that we work with. So for most colleges, they're going to look at an overall GPA, okay, sometimes weighted, sometimes unweighted, for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. Some colleges are also going to look at first semester 12th grade. I'll say a lot will, because they want to make sure that your student's not slacking off in the 12th grade. So the grades actually matter pretty equally across the board. For the UC system out here in California, 9th grade actual grades aren't included when they're looking at the GPA for admission, but they definitely matter because they're still on the transcript and the students are self-reporting the grades that they get in 9th grade. But 10th grade for sure, it's absolutely important. Colleges don't necessarily weight extra for higher SAT scores. It's often some of the public colleges will use what's called an enrollment index, an admissions enrollment index, where it's a formula that they use. It's a combination of the GPA. If you have a certain GPA, you need this type of test score. And so sometimes it's kind of, they do it like that. But it's not like there's a weight that's given for SAT scores, if that's what you were asking. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much, Anna. If you want to close off, please make sure that you go back to we'll be updating more webinars in the future, and you do have to re-enroll and re-register for our monthly webinars. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And thank you everyone for joining with us this evening. Just as a quick reminder, this webinar session will be emailed over to you in the next 24 to 48 hours, so just keep an eye on your inbox. And certainly if you do have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help in any way we can. Thank you again for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks, everyone.